Homies. Today I want to talk about something I've actually done for years, renting to a friend. And I don't think the lesson is never rent to friends. I don't think renting to friends is inherently a bad idea at all. But it creates an interesting overlap between two very different kinds of relationships. You've got the personal relationship, which can be loose and flexible, and you've got the financial relationship, which is happening every single month, whether you're thinking about it or not. In my case, I rented a room to someone I was genuinely close with. I knew what the room was worth, I knew what market rent was, and I intentionally gave favorable rent because this was someone I cared about a lot. There was no confusion about that. The discount was deliberate. It was generosity, not an underwriting mistake. And for a long time, there's nothing particularly complicated by that. If I have a friend I don't hear from for 3 months, who cares? That's friendship. People get busy, lives change. You can go months without talking to somebody and still consider them a friend. There doesn't need to be monthly accounting of whether the friendship is producing enough value. But here's where housing makes that interesting. Suppose I'm giving someone a couple $100 a month in below market rent. Now we're talking about thousands of dollars a year. Every month, regardless of whether we talk, regardless of whether we see each other, regardless of what the relationship currently looks like, that financial benefit continues automatically. And suddenly the ambiguity matters in a way it wouldn't normally matter in friendship. If we haven't talked in months, are we less close? Maybe, maybe not. Normally, I wouldn't even care enough to answer the question, but I'm effectively giving that person hundreds of dollars every month because of the relationship. Then at some point, it becomes reasonable to ask, what am I doing? Am I still intentionally giving a friend a benefit? Am I honoring an arrangement that I still think is worthwhile? Or has an old act of generosity quietly turned into a permanent financial subsidy that no longer has much relationship to the reason I offered it? And there's another fairness question here. I have other tenants, they pay rent too. If two people have roughly equivalent rooms and one person is paying substantially less because we were close personally, that's something I should at least be conscious of. That doesn't automatically make the discount wrong. I can give anybody whatever a deal I want, but I think it should remain a decision. That's the distinction that's interesting to me. I'm completely comfortable saying the room is worth $900 and I'm charging my friend $700 because I care about them and I want to help them. Fine. That's an intentional allocation of my own money. What gets strange is when years pass and nobody is really asking the question anymore. The rent just continues, the personal relationship does whatever personal relationships do, and the financial benefit keeps transferring every month on autopilot. There's also an asymmetry to it. If I don't call a friend for 2 months, I haven't necessarily taken anything from them. If they don't call me for 2 months, they haven't necessarily done anything wrong either. But if I'm simultaneously giving them a substantial recurring financial benefit, then the relationship isn't financially neutral anymore. That doesn't mean they owe me friendship. They absolutely don't. You should not give somebody discounted housing and then act like you've purchased their affection or attention or loyalty. That would be gross, and that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is almost the opposite. Because nobody owes anybody friendship, you should be able to separate the two questions cleanly. Question one, what is our personal relationship? Maybe we're close, maybe we're distant, maybe it's ambiguous, that's allowed to be messy. Question two, what financial arrangement do I consciously want to have with this person today? That one can be much cleaner. Maybe I still happily want to subsidize their housing. Great. Maybe I don't. Also fine. The useful thing is realizing that those are separate decisions. And I think this applies to mixing friendship and business more broadly. Friendships don't need constant maintenance or precise definitions. Business arrangements do have measurable economics. So when the two overlap, I don't think the answer is to avoid overlap entirely. I think the answer is to stay conscious of what you're giving, why you're giving it, and whether you still choose that arrangement as circumstances evolve. For me, renting to a friend has not taught me don't rent to friends. It's taught me that generosity should remain generosity. It should be something you're consciously doing, not just an old number that keeps repeating forever because that's what the spreadsheet said 3 years ago. If the friendship changes or maybe doesn't change, but simply becomes less active, you don't need to dramatize that. You don't need to decide whether somebody is still a real friend. You can simply look at the business arrangement on its own and ask, does this still make sense? Do I still want to offer this benefit? Is it fair to the business, fair to the other tenants, and fair to me? That's a much cleaner question. And that's probably the main thing I've learned from having a friend as a tenant. Personal relationships can remain flexible. Recurring financial arrangements shouldn't become invisible. That's it for this one. I'll talk to you guys soon.